Hello, everyone, and welcome to KTAL News Now. I'm your host, Anthony Mocklin, and today is Friday. It is also Halloween. And for those of you wondering, yes, I did shave my beard. It is all gone, clean shaven for the first time since I don't even know when. And if you're wondering, oh, why did he do that? It's because of my costume. For those of you who don't know who I am cosplaying or dressing up as Genu from K-pop Demon Hunters, which was like the hit movie of the summer. All the songs from it were charting on Billboard for months and months and months. If you haven't heard it yet, I'm sure you'll recognize it if you ever just hear it normally. But that's who I'm being for Halloween. And the reason I shave my face is because I plan to paint my face with all like the demon markings that the character has in the movie. And, I didn't really feel like painting over my beard and mustache and all that. And it grows back quick anyway. So I really didn't care. So you won't have to see me like this for too long. I know I look completely different than what you're used to seeing, but just had to give some context here. It's also we're having a costume contest here at the station, so I thought I'd come in my best dressed outfit. I made all this from scratch, just arts and crafts with the hat and the beads and just everything. I'm very excited to do all the makeup later with the face and see how it comes out. I'll be sure to, send some pictures or post them on the website maybe if we do like a costume showcase on our social medias. I'm sure on our Instagram maybe. So be on the lookout for that. If you're planning on dressing up this year and you have some killer costumes, I would love to see them. You can reach me at amocklin@ktalnews.com and send those over. Or you can go to our website and drop some pictures so we can share on our socials. We would love to just showcase the talent and creativity around the community, especially when it comes to Halloween. There's been some crazy costumes so far around the station and just through social media that I've seen. So I'm hoping that y'all are stepping up y'all's game this year. It's going to be really, really exciting. If y'all have plans tonight, be sure to stay safe. If you're drinking, make sure you have a designated driver. If you're trick or treating, make sure you have eyes on your kids at all times. Don't do anything stupid and just be safe out there, because the last thing we want is for something bad to happen or somebody to get hurt, or even worse, on what's supposed to be a celebration and a really, really fun time. So, but anyways, enough about Halloween. Just know that I'll be dressed like this the entire show. But looking ahead to today's episode of KTAL News Now, today is Friday, which normally means it is Football Friday. And yes, we will be taking a look at some of the marquee Week 10 matchups in college football this Saturday. And the first of which involves number 9 Vanderbilt going into number 20 Texas. And this one is really, really exciting. This is probably my favorite on the whole slate, although it is earlier in the day. It's not the prime time matchup, but still, I will definitely have my eyes on this one for sure, because Vanderbilt has just been rolling. They are 7-1, including 3-1 in SEC play against a Texas team who has been pretty inconsistent for the most part, considering the fact that they were a preseason number 1, and they have just not lived up to those expectations, in my opinion. Even though they are 6-2 right now, they're 3-1 in conference play. They did start 3-2 on the season and fell to unranked. So, aside from that, they've reeled off, 3 straight wins. So they're back in the swing of things. They're back in their top 25 rankings. But, there's still a lot to be desired with this Longhorns team, and they need to prove it to me that they belong in those rankings. And if they can get a win against Vanderbilt, I think their playoff chances will surely skyrocket. But although I don't really see any other opportunities for them to put themselves into that conversation aside from a win here on Saturday. But looking to the Commodores of Vanderbilt, their offense is absolutely elite. They are just rolling over teams. But speaking ahead to their ranking, they are number 9 in the AP Top 25 rankings. And with a win against Texas, they might jump even higher and might even break that ceiling of their highest ever Top 25 ranking, which was set in 1937 when they were ranked all the way as high as number 7 in the country. So I think there's some history to be made here if they can do it with that offense, like I was saying, which is led by quarterback Diego Pavia, who has been super, super stellar this year. He is definitely a Heisman candidate, if not the front runner. And he has completed almost 69% of his passes on his way to almost 1,700 yards and 15 touchdowns with just 5 interceptions. So he has been really, really solid. But one thing that has carried their offense is his running ability. He is their leading rusher, at least in terms of yards per carry, averages well over 5 yards per carry on the ground. So he's definitely dangerous both through the air and on the ground, and that is something that Texas, who boasts a pretty tough defense, is going to have to keep their eyes on and manage throughout the game. And like I was saying with their defense, Texas ranks in the top 10 in several different categories, but most notably in scoring. They only allow the 8th fewest points per game to teams in the nation, as well as the 13th fewest yards per game. And their rushing defense is really where they are just absolutely locked down. They are 3rd in the country in rushing yards per game allowed. And going against that Vanderbilt offense, which loves to run, and Diego Pavia loves to run the ball, that is going to be really, really interesting to see, considering this is basically an unstoppable force versus an immovable object. So we'll see who breaks first. I tend to lean Vanderbilt a little bit here just because of their resume this season. They have been absolutely stellar, but this fear of them kind of burning out is real, considering the fact that this is their fourth straight ranked game that they will be playing. This is the 4th straight week where they'll be playing a ranked opponent. And I don't think they've ever been used to a stretch like this in their program history. Just going through the gauntlet, essentially, of all these ranked teams to prove they belong in that top 10. But we'll see what happens. Quarterback Arch Manning for Texas is going through concussion protocol. But as of yesterday morning, head coach Steve Sarkisian said that he is making good progress. And it's not unusual to see a player get cleared within a week like this. I mean, it happened to Tommy Castellanos for Florida State earlier this season. So we'll see what happens if he does play. I mean, they definitely have a shot to win, but if he doesn't, I still think they'll be okay because their backup quarterback, Matthew Caldwell, actually led the team on a game-winning touchdown drive in overtime versus Mississippi State last week. So, I mean, he's more than capable of taking over for Arch, but, I mean, obviously they want Arch to play. He's had so much pressure put on him with the name and just being this highly touted prospect going into this season as a full-time starter. But, we'll see what happens. They definitely, whoever plays quarterback, Texas' offensive line definitely needs to keep them upright because they have allowed 18 sacks this year to Arch, and it would have probably been a lot more if he wasn't capable of running and scrambling away from that. So they definitely need some more protection there. He's been getting beaten up all season. So they definitely need to work on that and hone that in for Saturday. But we'll see what happens. The spread right now is Vanderbilt is a 3-point underdog, or I believe it was like 2.5. It keeps bouncing from 2.5 to 3. And I really, really like this number, honestly, because Vanderbilt, I mean, even if they lose and they lose by a field goal, I mean, they'll definitely still, I think, be in the top 10 if that does happen. But anything more than that, maybe their ranking will be a little bit questionable. But I think this is definitely a game they could win. It is on the road, but we'll see. I mean, Vanderbilt's been hot all year, especially their offense, and everything has been working for them. So I'm not going to stop and just bet against them now. But if I had to pick, I would definitely take Vanderbilt in the spread. I mean, this is not any financial advice betting wise. I'm just giving my personal prediction because if you go back and watch yesterday's edition of KTAL News Now, I predicted that the Dolphins would cover the spread against the Ravens last night, and that definitely did not happen. So I gotta, own up to that one, but that was on me. But yeah, this is just for fun. Like, I'm not doing any betting advice or anything like that, but I'm just letting y'all know before y'all go throwing the mortgage on Vanderbilt. But one other game looking into the SEC involves Georgia and Florida. And this game is touted every year as the world's largest outdoor cocktail party. And this one is typically played in Jacksonville. It has been played at a neutral site in Jacksonville almost every year since 1933. And this, unfortunately, is the last year it will be played in Jacksonville all until 2028. As the stadium it's played in, Everbank Stadium, is undergoing renovations currently, or well, it's about to. So they'll be on a little hiatus from Jacksonville for the time being. But people think, oh, Georgia's going down to the swamp. No, it's just a neutral site game. They're not actually in Gainesville. It's a common misconception when it comes to looking just on paper at the schedule, because Florida, the swamp, it is a very, very tough place to play in. Not as tough as Tiger Stadium with LSU, but it's still SEC football. It just means more. But in this series, Georgia has won the last 4, including 7 of the last 8. So they are on a roll, and that has pretty much been typical of what they've come to expect from the Bulldogs under Kirby Smart, who has led them to national championships, and they are in the hunt at least for a playoff spot. It's pretty much a guarantee every single year in the last decade or so. But Georgia this year, they have been, if anything, they've been resilient because they have trailed at halftime in 4 of their 5 conference games this season. And you could argue that they could legitimately have 4 losses this year, but they still find ways to win. I mean, that's just championship football. That's just the standard at that program, and they will not falter. They will not fade. They're like bad grass. They just won't go away. So you really have to just keep your foot on their neck if you want to win against them. And one of those games was against Tennessee earlier this year, and that one went to, I think it was double or triple overtime, and Tennessee absolutely should have won that game. And it was just, I was rooting for them, not gonna lie, but Georgia found a way to win and get it done. And they're just such an elite program. But their defense this year is not like the defenses of previous years, because Georgia, if you know anything about their program in the last decade or so, they have consistently been in the top rank of the defenses in the SEC. And this year they are actually last in the conference in sacks with just 8. And this is a crazy fact that I read, where this is the first time under Kirby Smart that their defense was dead last in the conference in any defensive category, which is crazy to even think about, because they, like I said, they are traditionally an elite powerhouse defensive program. And it's just crazy to me that that is a real stat. But on the other side of the ball with the Florida Gators, they are in a very uncertain period in terms of what's next for the season, as they just fired head coach Billy Napier. So there's a lot of uncertainty in regards to who's manning the helm, and we'll see what ends up happening. I don't like their chances in this game, especially the fact that they are without 2 of their best wide receivers in Vernell Brown III and Aiden Mizell. So they will be without those guys. Vernell Brown actually led the team in catches, so that's a huge blow to that Florida offense that has been pretty shaky this year, honestly, with quarterback DJ Lagway. If you're an LSU fan, you'll know all too well about the game at Tiger Stadium, where he threw 5 interceptions. So it has been a pretty inconsistent ride for the Florida offense. But like I was saying, Georgia, they still find ways to win games, and I'm not going to count them out this time. And especially they had a bye week last week. They're well rested. And like I was saying, with the uncertainty with Florida, Georgia is a 7-point favorite. So I will be taking them if I had to pick. I think they get it done. Even though it's on the road, it's still a neutral site game. So I like Georgia in this one. But the next one, looking over to the Big 12, and this one is a lot of playoff implications if you're a Texas Tech fan. And for those of you who don't know, Texas Tech is ranked number 13 right now, and only the top 12 teams make the playoffs this year. So this is a huge game for them. They really need to hammer down and get things done, especially if one of the top 10 teams ends up being upset. We'll see what happens there, but they could definitely sneak in. They're in the mix. They just got to stay there. but they are playing on the road against Kansas State, who is pretty middle of the pack in at least in conference play. They're 4-4 and 3-2 in conference play. So Kansas State was also a top 25 team coming into the season. Those of you who watched week 0 whenever they played Iowa State in Ireland, that was a really, really fun game. It was a thrilling finish where Iowa State won by 3 on a last second field goal. So that was really, really cool to see. But since then, they really just haven't lived up to that preseason hype. And Texas Tech, on the other hand, has been absolutely rolling. This is another one of the best offenses in the entire country. They are 4th in the nation in yards per game with almost 500 yards of offense per game. And their defense is also really, really good, especially against the running and the rushing attack. They are 1st in rushing yards allowed per game, as well as 4th in points per game allowed and 10th in total yards per game allowed. So on both sides of the ball, they are pretty scary. And that's why I think they'll definitely end up making the playoffs if they can get things done and just cruise out the rest of the season all the way to maybe even the conference championship, but we'll see. But quarterback Baron Morton for Texas Tech has missed the last 2 games with a leg injury, but he is expected to suit up on Saturday. But in those games where he did play, he completed 68% of his passes for over 1,500 yards and 13 touchdowns to just 3 interceptions. So super efficient there. Not a lot of mistakes there for him. And if they can continue to get that play out of him, I think they will come out with a win in this one. But for Kansas State, they really just haven't been able to do anything, at least offensively, because they are outside the top 80 in yards per game, passing yards per game, and rushing yards per game. So they really haven't been able to get a whole lot working. And their defense really isn't that much better. They are outside the top 70 in most of those same categories, but in terms of allowing those yards and points. So we'll see what ends up happening with them. But, they're kind of just middle of the pack. Like I was saying, they're just average. I mean, that's all it is. So I really don't think that they can come out with a win, even at home. But we'll see what happens. For Kansas State, quarterback Avery Johnson has been pretty good for the most part, at least in terms of raw numbers. Although he has completed just 63% of his passes, which is it's good, not great. It's not ideal, but he has thrown for almost 1,800 passing yards, 15 touchdowns, and just 2 interceptions. So he's limiting his mistakes as well, but they just really haven't been able to come away with wins. He has also been able to get things done on the ground, and he's added 250 rushing yards and 5 rushing touchdowns. So, I mean, if they can, I don't think if they have to come back from behind and have to pass and everything, I don't think they can stay in this game. But I think if they manage to keep things close and just ask Avery Johnson to do what he's expected to do, then I think they have a shot. But, Texas Tech, I think they have been really, really good. But even though as good as their defense has been, their secondary is their weakest part. So like I was saying, if they can, it's going to be hard to stop them if their defense is on, and Avery Johnson can't really do a whole lot. So I like Texas Tech in this one. But the next one involves the ACC, looking over to undefeated Georgia Tech, and they are 8-0 this season. This is the 6th time in program history that they have started a season 8-0, including the first since 1966. And going back to last season, they just tied their program record for most consecutive conference wins with 7 straight ACC wins, which is really, really impressive. And they are facing an NC State team who is also pretty middle of the pack. They are 4-4, including 1-3 in ACC conference play. So really not a whole lot going well for them either, although they are coming off a huge win last week. But NC State, they aside from that last week, they have lost 4 of their last 5, and they gave up a combined 90 points to Notre Dame and Pittsburgh. So their defense has been pretty suspect. I mean, although those are 2 really good teams, it's really not ideal, obviously. But quarterback Haynes King for Georgia Tech, he's not been super eye popping in terms of the raw stats, but he has been super, super efficient. He's completed 72% of his passes for almost 1,500 yards and 7 touchdowns with just 1 interception all year. Like I said, that efficiency there, he's not been asked to just air the ball out every single game, but he just picks and chooses his spots and he does not make a lot of mistakes. And last week against Syracuse, he actually set the program record for highest completion percentage in a game with at least 30 attempts with 80.6% of his passes completed. So he was super, super, pretty damn near perfect in that game. And he also became the first Georgia Tech player to pass for 3 touchdowns and run for another 2. So he was really, really excellent in that game. And this one is kind of a trap game for Georgia Tech because the spread right now, the last I checked, is only 5.5. So it is a little concerning. It kind of makes you raise an eyebrow saying, oh, why aren't they like a full touchdown favorite? And it's just 5.5. So Vegas definitely knows something that we don't. So that's why I kind of just want to stay away from this spread. I think, NC State, they have nothing to lose here. And meanwhile, Georgia Tech has everything to lose, considering if they keep this up and stay undefeated, they'll roll their way to the ACC championship and a playoff spot. So, but if they drop one here, I mean, things are in jeopardy for them. So I'm just gonna stay away here. If I had to pick, I guess I would take NC State at home to at least cover. But it's at 5.5 on paper. Usually this would be a slam for Georgia Tech, but there's just too much uncertainty here for my liking, so I'm just going to personally stay away. But looking ahead to Oklahoma and Tennessee, this one is another marquee SEC matchup, and Oklahoma is number 18 right now, and they are going against number 14 Tennessee, and both of these teams have been pretty good this year, but Tennessee, I'd argue, has been a lot better, and especially in bigger games, because Tennessee's offense, even against the best like Georgia and all those elite defenses, they are still third in yards per game and passing yards per game. And they rank second in the country in points per game. They're averaging over 45 points per game, which is insane to see. But as good as their offense is, their defense is the complete opposite because they rank outside the top 100 in yards per game allowed, passing yards per game allowed, and points per game allowed. So every game that they have won this year, or most of them, have mostly been to shootouts, and you really can't trust their defense to get a stop against pretty much anyone. And their loss this year was to Bama, and after that, they bounced back against Kentucky, where they put up 56 points and over 500 yards of offense. So they didn't miss a beat on offense, and that is a huge reason why they are among the best in the nation when it comes to anything offensive related. And their Oklahoma on the other side, their offense is bad because they are outside the top 70 in yards per game, rushing yards per game, and points per game. So this is a elite offense, bad defense versus bad offense, but then elite defense for Oklahoma because their defense is 5th in the country in points per game allowed, as well as 6th in yards per game and rushing yards per game allowed, and 10th in passing yards per game allowed. So they are pretty stout when it comes to locking down opposing offenses. So this is another one of those immovable object meets unstoppable forces where we'll see who breaks. I like Tennessee's offense a little bit better than Oklahoma's defense, considering the fact that Oklahoma has really only played one competent offense this year, and that was to Ole Miss, and they ended up giving up over 400 yards and 24 plus points to Ole Miss for the first time against anyone this season. So I think if as good as Tennessee's offense is, I think they're as good, if not better, than Ole Miss's. So I would be really worried if I'm a Sooners fan, considering the fact that, just after last week with Ole Miss, I don't like their chances this week, even though that they're they're also on the road. So, and the spread is only 3 points. Tennessee is a 3-point favorite. So I like them if I had to pick, but I think that'll be a great game regardless. The spread is very small, so it should be a pretty close game on paper, but we'll see what happens. I would not be surprised if Tennessee starts to run away with this one. on the backs of their offense. But that's all I have today for Football Friday. Be sure to visit ktalnews.com where you can catch our live stream every day, Monday through Friday at 1 p.m. You can also visit our YouTube page to view all of our previous episodes of KTAL News Now. And you can also go to our website, our social media, to find all of your local breaking and trending topics. You can see all of the costumes, I'm sure, that we have around the office. I'm very, very excited to see all of your costumes. If you send them in, you can visit our website to learn more on how to submit photos, and we can share them on our socials. So I'm really looking forward to that and just seeing how everybody gets dressed up tonight for Halloween. I hope you all have a happy and safe Halloween tonight. Be sure to tune in next week for more KTAL News Now and stay up to date with everything around the area. But for now, I'm Anthony Mocklin. Have a great rest of your day, and thank you for joining us.